Hello, my name is Sarah with the Ormond Beach Regional Library, and today on this episode of Volusia Gets Crafty, I'm going to show you how to use the special stitches we've been learning to create this fall table runner. Now, all of your stitches, most of them are going to be used in this table runner, with the exception of the moss stitch. We're going to use the V and the cluster stitch along with our single crochets. So whenever you're ready, we're going to grab our yarn and our hook, and we're going to get started. Okay, so we're getting ready to start our fall table runner, and the stitches that we're going to be using in this project are all ones we've learned either in the beginner series or in our special stitch series. So we're going to be using chains, we're going to be using the single crochet stitch, which you can see in the cream area here. We're going to be using our V stitch, which you see in the green, and then also the cluster stitch. And this kind of looks like flowers. If you can see, this is like the leaves, and then these are like the petals of the flowers. It's called flowers in a row, or flowers in Amsterdam is another terminology you might see the pattern called. But this is what we're going to be working on creating today. So we're going to start with the slip knot. I'm going to use this cream color to begin with. You can use whichever method that you learned previously that worked best for you. And we're going to start with our foundation row, which is the chaining, and it's a multiple of 3 plus 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 33, and then at the very end I'm going to add in an extra 2 for the turning. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to create just what I've done, we're going to chain a total of 35. But if you want to make it a little bit wider for the space that you may have it planned for, just chain in a multiple of 3, and when you get to the end, add in an extra 2 chains. So yarn over and pull through the loop on your hook to create your chain, and go to whatever your desired length is. If you want to do along with me, chain 35, and we'll meet you back in a second. All right, so I've reached the end of my chain. I've chained 35, which is 33 chains plus the 2 at the end for turning. And what we're going to do is we're going to do single crochets all the way across the top loop of that chain, and we're going to start in the third loop from the hook, the third chain from the hook. So remember, the one that's on your hook doesn't count as anything. So we're going to skip 1, and we're going to skip 2, and we're going to go into the third. We're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2. And you're going to just keep going into the top loop of each chain all the way across, doing single crochets. And when you're done, because we skipped those first 2 stitches, you should have a total of 33 single crochets, because those 2 that we added at the end were just for turning. So continue along your row of chains, and I'll meet you at the end. All right, so I've made my way back across my row of chains, and I've put my last single crochet in the last stitch. And looking at the tops of your V's, if you go back and count the tops of each of those stitches, you should have 33. It's important that you have that, because if you don't, it might tend to skew the pattern. That's what works best with this pattern. So what we're going to do next, we're going to consider that row 1, and we're going to change colors. So we're going to yarn over and do like another chain, and we're going to cut our yarn, and we're going to pull it out, make a tight knot there. And the next color we're going to choose is the green. This is going to be this part here with the V stitch. So we're going to use the join that we showed you when we were practicing these stitches. So make a slip knot, kind of get it to the point where you want it, a little nice and small, and then take it off. You're going to insert your hook into that last stitch that we just did. Be sure to get both of those loops of the stitch. Slip back on your slip knot, pull it through, and we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to turn the work. So that 3 chains at the beginning is going to count as a double crochet. And remember, when we did the V stitch, what that consisted of? It consisted of a double crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet, all in the same stitch. So because this is counting as a double crochet, if you follow it down, that first stitch that we had it in is full now. So we're going to go right into the next one, but we have to do a double crochet. So we're going to yarn over first, insert under both loops of that stitch, pull up your loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, chain 1, and going back into that same space, we're going to do another double crochet. Oh. It's hard in the beginning, guys. You see, when I'm struggling, you don't have a whole lot to hold on to. Okay, so there's our V. What we're going to do next is skip 2 chains, or 2 stitches, and going into the 3rd, we're going to do another V stitch. Yarn over, skip 1, 2, going into the 3rd, put a double crochet, chain 1, and then another double crochet in the same space. Okay, so that is what we're going to do all the way across this row. Yarn over, skip 1, 2 stitches, going into the 3rd, double crochet, chain 1, another double crochet in the same space. So if you want to continue that on across your row of stitches, and I'll meet you back at the end to show you how we finish the row. This is row 2. So I've come to the end of my 2nd row with my V stitches going all the way across, and when you reach the end, you might think you've done something wrong because there's this little bit hanging off the end. It's one last stitch. But if you remember at the beginning, we had the chain 3, which was the lone double crochet basically standing by itself. So we want to have a mirror image of that on the other side. So we're going to put 1 double crochet by itself in the final stitch, and that'll balance it out. If you've done everything right, you should have 11 V's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, with the double crochets by themselves on the end. So that's your 2nd row. We're going to change colors, so chain 1, cut a nice long tail, pull your string through and tighten it. And next we're going to move to the cluster stitch, which is the flower petals. So we're going to create another slip knot, get it on your hook, get it prepped and ready to go, small enough but loose enough that you can get your hook back out. We're going to go through the top 2 loops of that last double crochet stitch we did, hook on your color, pull through, and chain up 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to turn our work. Get that scissors out of the way. All right, so the cluster stitch, that was a fun one that we learned, is going to go into this chain 1 space of your V from the previous row. And you want to be sure to go into the V that's like this, not the upside down V that's in between. So you want to go into the chain 1 space of your V to do your cluster stitch. And you remember how we did that? We yarned over, insert into that space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and hold it. So there's a partial double crochet, one of them is in there. We're going to yarn over, insert back into that space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2 and hold it. So there was a second partial double crochet. Then we're going to yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2. So when you've got 4 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 4. Then we're going to chain 2. That secures it, and then it also advances to your next chain 1 space. And we're going to do another cluster. So yarn over, insert into the next V, the next chain 1 space of the V, pull through 2 and hold it, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and one more time. When you have 4 loops on your hook, you're almost there. Yarn over and pull through all 4, chain 2, and then repeat that into each V space going across your work. And I'll meet you again when we get to the end. So I've just completed all of my cluster stitches going back across this row. So this is row 3 with our flowers. And at the end, I'm going to, remember, after you complete your cluster, you want to be sure to still chain 2. And we've got 1 more stitch down here. And remember, just like in the previous row, we started with a chain 3, which was like a lone double crochet. So we want to put another lone double crochet at this side. So we're going to yarn over, and this time we're working into a chain 3. So you're going to count 1 chain, 2 chains, 3, and go into the top of that chain. And if you can get under 2 loops, it's best. It's a little bit more secure. And do your double crochet. And then we're going to change colors back to that cream. So we're going to chain 1, cut our yarn, make your knot, and then we're going to grab our cream color back. We're going to attach it just like we have been. Create your slip knot. Get it about the size you want. Go into the top of that double crochet stitch, that last one we just did. Get both loops of that stitch. Put your little slip knot on there and pull it through. This time we're going to chain 1 because we're going to start the single crochet row, a row of single crochets again. So we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn your work. And this is what we're going to do. In this first space right here, see where my finger's poking through? We're going to put a single crochet. So insert, pull up a loop, and pull through 2. Next, we're going to go into the top of this cluster stitch. And you might be wondering, well, where does that go? But if you kind of pull up on it, you can see there's a little hole right there. That's what you're going to go under. And if you look, when you insert it, you should still see your V on top of your hook. So that's the top of the cluster, and you want to put a single crochet there. Then in your chain 2 spaces that you did from between your flowers, you're going to put 2 single crochets. 1, 2. In top of this cluster, remember, pull it a little bit, you can find that space. Put 1 single crochet. In the chain 2 space, we're going to put 2 single crochets. In the top of the cluster, pull it if you have to find that hole. 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. So you're going to repeat that across, putting 1 into the top of each cluster and 2 into the spaces between. And I'll meet you again when we reach the end. All right, so I've worked that same pattern across with the single crochets. So this is row 4, and I got into the end, and remember, we have this chain here at the end. That was our final, we'll consider it our final stitch, and we want to go into the top of that chain 3. So there was 1 chain at the bottom, 2, and then a 3rd one. You want to go into that 3rd chain and put your last single crochet for the row. Now if you go back and you count your stitches, you should end up with 33 stitches. Does that sound familiar? That's what we had in the beginning, right? Because we worked off of that 33 stitches to create our 2nd row of green, which was the V. So if we want to repeat the pattern, we still have to have the 33, and that's what we've got. That's why we did the single crochets the way we did it there. What we're going to do is do 2 more rows of single crochet. So you're just going to go into each stitch that we've made across. So chain 1, this is keeping the same color, and you want to go into this 1st stitch. Now, because we just chained 1, it's the one right at the base of it. So it's this very first set of 2 loops. And you'll put a single crochet there, and then go under each stitch across, putting in another single crochet. So do that all the way across, and I'll meet you again at the end. So I've just come back across my row and done another row of the single crochets. So now there's technically 2 rows. And I've finished, and once again, if you go back and count your stitches, you should have 33. We're going to do that one more time. So chain 1, turn your work, and into the very first stitch that's right next to your chain 1 here, you're just going to put in your single crochet, and then work 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way across. And that will be it, you guys. Then what you're going to do is simply repeat everything we just did. So what you'll do, let's just pretend like I've gone all the way back across for my 3rd row of single crochets. What you'll do is you'll rewind this video, and look for the place where we started round 2, which was the green V-stitch. Once you finish this single crochet row, then you're going to pick up with the green V-stitch and just follow that, press play and follow that back through to the same point. And you're going to repeat it until you get to the length that you want for your table runner. I don't measure mine. It's long because I have a space in my house for it. But you can, customize it for whatever length that you have in your house. I wanted to show you too, if you wanted to do a single color, what it would look like. Let me kind of move the yarn out of the way. And the benefit of using just one color is I think you tend to notice the stitch work a little bit better. It really sets off the stitch work. And you don't have as many tail ends to weave in, because when you change up the colors, you see these lovely tails. And this wouldn't look very pretty to lay it out on your table, right? So if you want to sew those in, I'm going to show you how that works. You're going to take one of your needles and you're going to take your tail. And I don't know if I explained this really well in our previous videos, but you basically want to weave it back in through like colors. So you're going to want to weave it back in through the greens, since that's the color that I'm working on hiding basically. And because this pattern is reversible, it looks the same on the front as it does on the back. It doesn't really matter which side you pull it through. But you just want to work your way front, one way and then come back another way. That just keeps your tail from falling out as it sets and as you maybe need to wash it. So one way and then another way, and then you just trim it. And it pretty much disappears, see? And you have to do that for every tail end you do. So this is pretty, and what I've done for my table runner involved that. So there was a lot of sewing in of ends. It took a while at the end, but it was worth it. I think it turned out nice. But with a single color, you won't have that problem. You'll just have very few tails to sew in at the end. And it does look lovely as well. I've got another example that uses a variegated yarn. So this just changes color on its own, this kind of yarn does, and it gives it this kind of a look. So that's kind of pretty too. And once again, you wouldn't have as many tail ends to sew in either. All right. So it would be kind of fun if you played with this pattern and made it a little bigger. You could make matching placemats if you wanted. I actually took the pattern from a blanket, so it can be done in blanket form. You would just need to chain more at the beginning. Remember, it was a multiple of 3, and then add in the extra 2 for turning at the end. And you could also change it out and have some fun by playing with the colors. Like these are fall colors, so it's a fall table runner. But if you wanted to try experimenting with spring colors like pastels, that would be very pretty. Coming up here for the holidays, you could choose like a winter white, a green, and then maybe a holly red for a poinsettia flower. And likewise, you could even make like a seasonal, like a 4 seasons. You could do winter colors for a few repeats. You could go into the spring, and then maybe some vibrant, bold summer colors, and then transition into fall. So you could have like a 4 seasons table runner. So there is endless possibilities, really, if you want to play around with color and sizing with this pattern. And yet, like I said, just go back and repeat the video, and you can continue on, and then at some point it might just become second nature to you. You might not even need me anymore. You could maybe just remember it. So I want to congratulate you if you were able to see it through with me here to this last project. I want to thank you for joining me for the Special Stitches series. Up next, we'll be dipping our toes into some texture stitches, so stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, please comment below. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.